Hey, what's up guys? My goal today is to take you through a leg focused glute formula. So something you can kind of piece together different exercises per category and make your own workout. So there's 4 categories in a solid glute focused workout. It's our squat lunge variation, which we're gonna start with. And then we have the hip thrust or glute bridge category. Third is the hinge category. And then the last category being external rotation or abduction. So in the squat category, you're working your glutes, but you're also working your entire leg musculature. You're gonna work your quads and your hamstrings for overall leg development, which I love to do. I love a barbell squat, so that's actually what I'm gonna show you. And you're working your glutes in a lengthened position, and I usually choose just 1, sometimes 2 if it's a single leg movement in a lengthened position, because it requires a little bit more recovery. So we'll start with the barbell squat. Always set up your squat with purpose, with intention. So getting under the bar, you're prepared and mentally ready for the movement. I back up, I find my squat stance, make sure my feet are grounded. I keep my gaze somewhere around knee length in the mirror, so my eyes stay pretty fixed. I'm thinking of driving my elbows towards the floor, and on the way up, I'm imagining pushing my upper back into the bar. Both on the way down and on the way up, I drive my knees out, and I find an exhale on the way up. Inhale down, big exhale to rise. You can absolutely choose a different squat too. If you're not ready for the barbell, you can do a goblet squat with a dumbbell or your Smith machine squat. And I'll show you a little variation or how to make the Smith machine more glute bias than quad, and it depends on your foot and your torso position. So here you go. If I keep my feet a little further back and allow myself to really break at the hips down like this, you can see that I can really recruit my glutes on the way up because they're in a deep stretch pattern, and I'm really deep into hip flexion at the bottom. Or you can walk your feet forward and be a little bit more upright, and this is more of a quad dominant squat. I have less hip flexion at the bottom, and it allows my quads to do a majority of the work. My gym has so many different kind of squat machines, and you can choose whatever one is your favorite. I just like the barbell squat in general, but if you like the pendulum squat, if you have any different variations that you love, go with that. It doesn't really matter, you are gonna recruit the same muscle. However, something that's in a machine, it helps with your stability, so you might actually work like your stability muscles a little bit less. So you don't have to rely on your core or like your glute main muscles quite as much, and you can more just focus on the glutes. So that's also a factor if you care about working more stability muscles or you just want to isolate more of the glutes and ham. Those are now also in our squat category. We have our lunges and our split squats. You can absolutely do those with dumbbells, but I'll show you here on the Smith machine. We'll start with the split squat. And once again, you can make this glute dominant by finding your deep hinge. So I'm already starting with my hips angled back, a nice neutral spine, core activation. I'm gonna lead with my hips to lower down, and I'm in a really deep hip flexion angle. That allows me to recruit my glutes on the way up. Now, same idea with stability. If I want a little bit more of my stability muscles to work, you can go into a reverse lunge where you're actually stepping back and pushing your way forward. You wanna push a majority of that weight through your front foot. Also in the squat pattern is our step down or our step up. I like the step down so much more because it's easier to not cheat and to just rely on that single glute to do the work on the way up. So you start at the top on this one. My gym has this machine that's pretty much built for it, but you can just use like a block, hold or like some kind of step up, hold up to a rack and hold on to the rack, or you can hold on to the wall on the way down. You do want to hold on for this one. So I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to drop my right leg behind. Can you see me? Okay. And then I'm going to break at the hips. You see how I'm in this forward lean. So this hip flexion angle is smaller, that's a pattern. So I'm gonna lower down as much as I can, breaking at the hip, and you're bending the knee at the bottom, but it stays generally over the heel, and then you push your way back up. And you don't have to come fully through. This is the starting position, already breaking back in that hinge. All the way down and drive back up. Other side, hinge at the hips, go as deep as your body allows. You're also getting good mobility, and push your way back up. If you were to hold the dumbbell, you can hold it in either side. The left side will help you use more of this leg, and then the right side is gonna help with a little bit more stability, so like your glute med, and men will have to be involved, stabilize your hip, which we also love working. That kind of gets that outer upper butt region. The last thing we're gonna talk about in the squat category is the leg press. You could do 2-leg, single leg, or what I've been doing lately is the split stance version. So going through our checklist, you're gonna make sure that your low back is flat, you're using your core. A little bit more glute is gonna have your toes out and your feet more elevated. Since I'm pretty tall, sometimes I even have the tips of my toes off the machine. I wiggle my shoulder blades back and then exhale on effort. Exhale to push away and inhale to lower back down. So if you're using 2-leg, or if you want to do a single leg, you can just drop the other leg through. Make sure you never lock out the knee, and then you would feel a lot more glute with that one leg. If you want to have a little more help with the stability, you can do a split stance. So now my other foot is on the press, on the plate, but it's at the bottom and just on my toe mound, and all of my effort is going to be through the working higher leg. I'm pushing that knee towards my shoulder, getting as low as I possibly can, and then pushing away. So I would do all of my reps on this side and then switch. Sometimes if you're doing high intensity, you might even rest in between sides. Like I'll do my left leg, maybe rest a minute, and then do my right leg, and then rest a full like 90 seconds to 2 minutes, or even more, depends on how hard you're working. The next category is our hinge, or our kind of like an RDL or a deadlift. Lately, I prefer an RDL so much more. So I'll show you the 2 ways that you can do it with the dumbbells. You can do it with both legs, or you can choose a split stance version. So the 2 legs, please grab it like that, so you wouldn't bother your back. Bending at the hips, bending at the knees, and then I make sure my toes are forward, set up my hips so they're angled slightly back. I always turn my knees out a little bit, like you're doing the abduction machine, like so. Engage your lats, engage your core. Now we're ready to start breaking at the hip, and you can also bend generously at the knees, but they stay over your heels. And then from there you come through, always keeping those dumbbells pretty much touching your body. Or you can do my favorite, which is the B stance. So I'm gonna take my right foot in line with my working leg. That's your kickstand foot. That foot has like no weight through it. My working leg has all my weight. I'm gonna do the same thing, but kind of rotate over my left foot and then come through. Not all the way up. Inhale and exhale to rise. You can certainly use a barbell and do a barbell RDL. I just like the dumbbells more lately, but there's some preference and some wiggle room with that. Okay, the last one that I'm gonna show you in the hinge category is the back extension machine, but I'm gonna tell you how to make it glute emphasis. It's all about the setup and your posture. So you start setting it up with your feet turned out, your heels turned in, and then you kind of you make sure this pad is right under your hip bone. So I'm gonna try one higher for me actually. So it's right across your hip bone. I keep my knees slightly bent to help me bias the glute, and then you round your spine also to put your back muscles on slack so that you can bias the glutes. So my torso is rounded. I go down. I kind of think going into like a cow belly in yoga, pointing my tailbone to the sky, and then watch on the way up, I'm going into more like a cat position, rounding, tucking my glutes, and shortening the space between my ribs and my hip bones. Think of hip thrusting into the pad, and think of pushing the back of your legs into the pad. Squeeze your butt and then lower back down. Exhale, squeeze, dead stop. That's gonna help make sure that you're also using those glutes. And then you could use a weight plate or a barbell. Sometimes I've seen people use You can use a band for resistance, or of course you can use body weight. I'll show you with weight plate. So I'll just do it with this 10-pound weight plate. I always set it at the bottom, set up, go through that mental checklist, grab the weight at the bottom. You can hold it out here a little bit, or you can hug it into your chest. Dead stop, round under, squeeze your butt like crazy, and inhale on the way down. You don't want to be like this at the top, then you're going to use your back muscles. Stay rounded, stay tucked under, have all the work in your glutes, mindfully squeeze them, and lower back down. Let me know if you have any questions along the way. I didn't mention the Hinge category is going to work glutes and hamstrings primarily, and if you're doing like the B stance version, you're also going to get that glute med to help stabilize your hip. Now we're gonna go on to my favorite category. Real quick, also when you're doing an RDL, you're gonna be using the glutes in a lengthened position, so think recovery time does matter. Now, like I said, this is my favorite exercise for the glutes because it's just isolates them. You can do it often because the recovery time is quicker due to working the glutes in a shortened position. You work them at the top. So I'll show you 3 versions of the hip thrust, the barbell, regular hip thrust, actually 4. Then you can also do it with the band, and when you have the band on, it allows you to abduct the knees and then also work your glute med and glute min to get that upper butt as well. I'm gonna show you the split stance, and then you can do a machine. I don't love the machines I have at my gym, but some people love the machines. So if you're doing the band, you're gonna place it over your knees. The further down, the harder it is. Then I have this kind of set up at my gym that makes it easier just to slide under the bar, but you can easily do it with a bench. Just roll the barbell up to the bench, get yourself under it or a block, and hike yourself up. The ideal height is like 14 inches for the bench, but I have done it before I came to this gym all the time with just a regular bench, and you just have to kind of make it work. Hike up your posture so that your mid back is onto the bench. I prefer version where you keep your chin tucked and looking down because you're gonna feel less achiness and work in your head and your neck because you don't want to stress out your neck, right? So then I dig my heels in for extra emphasis on the butt. I lower my hips down as much as I possibly can. Then when I thrust, I think of tilting my tailbone towards my face, and you see this shortened position. My ribs and my hip bones are closing. I'm tilting my tailbone under so I can really squeeze my butt. If I have the band, I push out on the band. If I have my heels digging in, I think of pulling them back towards me. Now I feel my butt like crazy. Inhale on the way down, exhale, lift, tilt, squeeze everything. Look down. See how it looks. You can do it with a pause, which I love doing because you feel it the most. It sucks because it's painful. Or you can do it without a pause, just thrust up and down, especially if you're adding more weight. So that's the version with the band. You can imagine it without the band, it would be the same thing. And then you also have your split stance version. I set up with both feet, and then I kind of like wiggle. So my left foot that's closer is my working leg, and I imagine pushing all of my weight through my left foot, and I'm always like looking at my left hip bone and thinking of squeezing my left glute at the top. You don't need the band on for this, I'm just too lazy to take it off. And then the same idea with the right foot. You would rest a little bit because you're going high intensity, right? And then you want to do the other side. Pushing all of my weight through my right foot. Imagine squeezing through my right glute at the top. And also look at my arms. I'm locking out my arms. Shoulders stay away from my ears. You could do the same things with the dumbbell. Once you get to using 45 pounds, you can switch over to the bar because the bar by itself is 45 pounds. I said 4 versions, I'm just gonna keep going. So you could also do a single leg, lifting one foot off the ground, lower, 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 lift and tuck, keeping this leg off the ground the entire time. You have to work your glute med, min, and this side, your glute max. I'll show you a machine real quick as well. So you also have your machine versions. I'm just not gonna load it because it would just slide the weight plates on either side if you were to do it. This one I can move myself up. I like to be all the way up. I just find these machines a little bit more awkward and sometimes it's harder to like bias the glutes. You might feel it in your quads as well. So you belt yourself in, then you hike up your feet. It's just awkward to like lift up, especially with a lot of weight. I'll end up using my hands on my knees to push my way up, and then I have to like wiggle myself up, which you can imagine with a lot of weight is awkward. Still, I like to dig my heels in. It's not mandatory, but it does help you kind of push the force up the back of your leg. Same idea, lift, squeeze, tuck under. Inhale, back down. This may be easier for a lot of people for convenience because it's much easier to set up. So just like the squat, how there's so many different squat variations, choose your favorite hip thrust variation and make it your staple. Repeat it week in and week out. And that's how you're gonna see progression by getting better at the version that you choose, adding more weight and more reps over time. I always like to bias more weight. High intensity movements. Getting better is how you gain muscle. That's the most efficient way to build muscle development. The fourth and final category is our external rotation and abduction movement. That is going to prioritize working the glute medius and the glute minimus and get that outer upper butt kind of hard to get area. So I'm starting with the gluteator machine. Not every gym has this, and it's totally fine if it doesn't. You can do this one of two ways. Leaning forward or leaning backward. When you're leaning a bit forward, I have my spine extended, good posture, core control, always going through that checklist. You use a little bit more glute max as well. We kind of go into extension a bit. Sometimes I'll do as many reps as I can, AMRAP leaning forward, and then I'll lean backward, and then again go till failure, or you can just choose one or the other. Something I commonly see is like girls using their whole body to do it. So if I was leaning forward, they would like push their whole back into it, sway their spine. You don't want to do that. It's not going to isolate the glutes. You want to sturdy your spine, engage your core, and just think of pushing those thighs out to the side and engaging through that outer upper butt area. Even pause for a second at the end and go slowly on the way back. You want to imagine tensioning the muscles that you're actually using. Push, push, push. Imagine using my outer butt. Pause. And don't let the machine do anything for you. Go slow on the way back, and that's a great habit to get into if you want to grow those glutes. If your gym doesn't have the gluteator machine, do not fret, you can use the hip abduction machine. Same idea, you can lean forward and involve the glute max a little bit. Pause at the end, go slowly on the way back, or you can just do the leaning back version. Walk yourself, stay mindful that you're not doing any extraneous extra movement out the spine, you're just pushing through those outer thighs. You can get an even better range of motion often by putting like some sort of cushion pad or even like yoga block on either side of your thigh. I don't have them here with me, but try it out and see if you like it better and feel a better mind-muscle connection with that one. The last couple exercises I'm going to show you, I have ankle weights attached, or not ankle weights, ankle straps attached. I always bring my own. You can just buy them on Amazon, and you can do a kickback a few different ways, and you can do a hip abduction a few different ways. Both are working your glutes in the shortened position, so you can do them often, and you get that outer upper butt area with a little bit of rotation and abduction. So first, I'll show you the kickback. I stand in a little bit of a hinge, kind of like I'm about to do an RDO, and then I'll pull the weight off a little bit. So there's already tension on the cable. I'll sometimes even use my left hand to hold my hip bone to make sure it stays square. So this is the kick back version. If I do it straight or with my toe a little bit turned in, you'll get mainly glute max. And because I'm standing on one leg, my standing glute med has to work to balance out my hips to make sure they don't drop. And if I turn my foot out and up at the top, that can recruit more glute med and glute med as well. I've been doing that one lately. And you can go into your hip abduction. So you can stand straight up, my toes are pulled to my nose, and then I'm gonna kick straight out to the side. That you're gonna feel outer hip, and you're gonna feel this standing leg as well. Sometimes you'll see people stand in front of it a little bit, point their toe and kick it back. Also a fine way to do it. Or you can use a bench to prop this leg onto and then just kick out to the side to take out the standing hip. And same idea, I can put this foot on a bench that's kind of inclined and just kick back, which will take the standing stability out of it. So that's how you do the cable. And just like any other exercise, you want to progress as you go, week in, week out, repeat the same exercise, and always be trying to put more weight on it. If your technique and your form is there and you're mindful, you'll be good to go. Thank you for coming to the gym with me today, guys. I hope you learned how to piece together your own version of a glute workout. We went through the 4 categories, the squat lunge pattern. I showed you some of my favorites. And again, I don't know if I mentioned, this list is of course non-exhausted. I didn't do walking lunges. I didn't do like every single variation you could possibly do. Your gym might have some really cool machines that are a little bit different. Try those out, but I want you to understand the 4 categories into how to build a good workout that you can progress and that you can recover from. Back to my point, there's the 4 categories, the squat, the lunge, we went through those. There's the hinge pattern. You could have thrown in a deadlift instead of the dumbbell RDL versions that I showed you, or the glute focus back extension machine. Then you have the Mecca. I should have started with this one, but it was taken when I started this video. But the hip thrust is like dynamite. You want to make sure if you're growing your glute, that is in your program. I have seen massive gains by focusing my energy on just that. So you can do that more than once a week. Every time you're doing a glute day, throw some version of the hip thrust in there. You could do it with dumbbells. I didn't show you every version. You could have done a glute bridge with the barbell on the floor. I just much prefer the hip thrust version, so that's what I showed you today. And then finally, the last category, the hip abduction external rotation machine. We went through the gluteator, the hip abduction machine, and we went through some cable versions. You can do stuff with the band. You might have different machines at your gym that you can fit into that category specifically. And really, that's all I do. I choose one movement from each category to build my workout. I repeat them at least for 4 to 6 weeks. I might play with the order. I might play with certain variations. Like if the gluteator's taken on Monday, then I might do the hip abduction machine. And then when I go to do glutes again, the second time I'm hitting it that week, I might do the opposite order. But it's not like I'm gonna fill it with a walking lunge. I want to fill it with the same category. I want to substitute it with the same category. That way, it's a holistic program. You're working your glute max, your glute med, your glute min, your core, all of those leg muscles in an efficient way so that you can recover really well, really efficiently. What's also going to determine your recovery is everything else outside of the workout. How well you're eating, how well you're sleeping, how you're managing your stress, how much protein that you're eating. Your entire lifestyle really goes into how much you are going to build outside of the gym. I do like to just include that so you know that yes, the workouts are a priority. There's no immediate gratification in this. You have to progress, you have to get better, you have to do these week in, week out for months and months and years to actually see a physique change. So don't give up. Keep working, keep growing, keep watching videos like this where you can learn, and ask me questions below, whatever you guys want to see next. I hope that I can fulfill that need and help you guys understand how to grow those glutes. Hope to see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And my favorite way to end any glute workout is you have to do a glute pump or a glute selfie. When you know, you know.